But in that authority, he is the creator. And he's going to go on from that point, and he's going to say, if we look in the end of verse 24, he's the Lord of heaven and earth, and he does not live in temples made by man. Now again, what was all around them in Athens and everywhere else in the Greek world? Temples. All these buildings erected for the gods to dwell in, and all these kind of things. Now, God had a temple too, right? This is like, I think we're right around, 58-ish AD here. So the temple hasn't been destroyed in Jerusalem yet. It's still alive and well. Sacrifice is still going on. So what's the difference between temples made with hands and God's temple, and before that, the tabernacle? Did God live there? Was the tabernacle or the temple like kind of God's house, and before that he kind of had a motorhome that he cruised around in the promised land with, and then we're going to move into something a little more permanent here, but first we'll get some land, and then Solomon builds it, and then God can live in that place. No. When you read the law and you see what it was, the temple wasn't where God lived. It was where God met with human beings. And you had all the sacrifices, remember the animal sacrifices all throughout the Old Testament? They were there to, it says, atone for, or literally those sacrifices, the blood of bulls and goats, they smeared, their blood smeared over sin. It atoned for sin. Literally, it hid sin. But it wouldn't be until Christ came where the blood, the perfect blood of the Lamb of God, the perfect sacrifice, it didn't smear over sin, it erased it. It forgave it. It covered it. And we'll talk more about that later. See, so when Paul's saying that he doesn't live in temples with hands, he's not negating the temple or the tabernacle and what it was for. Those things were always sacrifices that were made by faith in order for sin to be atoned for that Jesus would complete one day. If you recall, kind of the pinnacle of the sacrifices was when one day a year, the high priest, they would sacrifice, they would bleed a red heifer, and they would take the blood of the red heifer, and the high priest would put on his garments, and he would go into the Holy of Holies, that 15 by 15 by 15 foot box, and there the Ark of the Covenant was in there. And if, I always use this example, it's the most accurate one that you can probably see, but if you go and you watch, not that I'm saying you should, but if you watch the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you see the Ark that's in the movie, and that's really what it looked like. It was a box made of acacia wood, and then it was covered in gold, and there were two cherubim that were on it, and they kind of had their wings outstretched, and they connected in the middle. And so what happened is the high priest, the lid to the ark was called the mercy seat. And once a year, the high priest would go in, he'd take the blood of the red heifer, he would sprinkle it on the mercy seat, and God said, I will meet with you above the mercy seat, and I will forgive the sin of my people. So the interaction of the tabernacle and later the temple, it wasn't a place for man to serve God. It was a place for man to meet with God and to receive the forgiveness of sins by faith in the actions that he had, or not actions, but the protocols he had created. Does that make sense? Significantly different. It's also worth pointing out here that when he goes on, it says that he... as though he needed verse 25, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all mankind life and breath and everything. See, there's a complete different dynamic here, isn't there? He's not saying that God never had a temple. He's not saying that God's temple was irrelevant. It was different than their temples by far, because it was for the purpose of forgiveness and fellowship, not for the purpose of appeasement. And he makes it even more clear when he goes through and he says, look, God is not served by human hands as if he needs anything. Now, again, we can go like, well, hey, wait a minute, Paul. Because in half of your letters that you wrote, you always refer to yourself as Paul, the servant of God. The doulos in Greek, meaning the bondservant, which is a reference all the way back to the Old Testament, which was if you were in debt and you could actually sell yourself for 7 years to someone, and for 7 years, in exchange for your service, that person would keep you and your family fed. There's no social programs. There's no net. So you could sell yourself to this person, and then if they treated you super well, you could actually say, you know what? I just want to be in your household. I just want to keep serving you. And then they would do this whole ceremony where you go to the elders and you say, my master's been good to me, and he's given me, everything that I have. He's been kind. I just want to keep serving him. And then they would take you and kind of a little violent. They would take an awl and you'd stand in front of his house. I don't know how that would work. Maybe a big earlobes, I'm not sure. But they would take an awl and slam it through your ear to the doorpost, which would probably be a stressful situation. But they do that. And then after they pull it back out, which you kind of like, they pull it back out and they put a gold ring in there. And then everybody, when you went to the market, everybody who saw that would be like, that guy works for somebody really great. That's literally what it was. It's like, that guy, he's got a good boss. That he's solid. And so you were a doulos. So constantly, Paul refers to himself as a bondservant of Jesus Christ, a willing slave, as it were, of Jesus Christ. That's what he's saying. So in this idea that, what does he mean he's not served with hands? I mean, we just had a worship crew. I saw hands, right? There was hands on a guitar, whatever, all be. We have kids ministry, they're using hands. How can we say that God is not served with hands? Well, it's the qualifier, as if he needed something. See, all these other idols that they're serving based on appeasement. They're serving out of slavery. They're serving because they have to. That's never been God's plan. It's never been a have to. It's never been a you better. It's never been a God who says, you better appease me. He needs nothing from us, which is really good news because he only desires to be with us. Isn't it tremendously heartbreaking when you find out somebody who's been in your life actually only wanted something from you? Isn't that the most heartbreaking thing ever? To think like, I thought we were friends. I thought we were just hanging out. I didn't realize that there was this alternate plan, that I was a debtor to you. See, from the very beginning, all the way back in Genesis, we see God's plan. I'm going to create you. We're just going to hang out in a garden. You guys will do botany. We'll talk. It'll be good. That's God's literal plan. Sin enters in, complicates everything, as it always does, and we kind of may be familiar with the rest of it. But for God, from the beginning until this day, until today, God's desire has always been fellowship. It's never been appeasement. It's never been a relationship of fear and cowering. So when he says, look, he's not served by human hands as if he needs something, the idea there is that we don't have to bring him chunks of meat. We don't have to try to appease him so that we can get a better loom or more children or better crops. Jesus told us that God, his Father causes the rain to fall on the just and the unjust. Here we're like, it's a curse, but when you're a farmer, that's a blessing. He says that he gives. We don't have to, it's not about our hands giving to him. It's about the fact that he's given us everything. He says life and breath and everything. See, idolatry always works the opposite. In an idolatrous relationship or religious relationship, who gives and who takes? In all idolatry, we're always the giver and the idol is always the taker. But Paul says, no. The God that you don't know, the God that you have your altar to, no. He's the giver and you're the taker. Because there's no other way for a person to be saved. We can never give enough. There aren't enough chunks of meat. There aren't enough temple prostitutes. There aren't enough hours in the day to ever earn what God said he gave us in Christ. Forgiveness and fellowship. So just as this was a revolutionary idea in this day, it's a revolutionary idea in our day. How many of us for many years have had the experience that we related to God on a religious or idolatrous way? How many of us are still doing that? That's a hard road. It's a hard road to live, to constantly think that you have to appease God or he's going to get you. It's a hard road to serve idols. It's hard to serve money, isn't it? It's hard to serve sex. It's hard to serve drugs or alcohol. It's hard to self-medicate. It's a difficult life, the idolatrous life, that keeps taking and taking and taking, and we keep giving and giving and giving, hoping that somehow, some way, we'll feel whole and we'll be okay. And Paul comes along in this terrible time. He says, no. God's given you everything. He gave you life, your soul, who you are. He gave you your breath, strength, vitality. He's given you everything. So when we're talking about in a Christian sense of our relationship to God, it's never a relationship of appeasing. Our goal in our relationship is to be pleasing. In a way that it's not, I'm somehow going to make God not mad at me, because that's what Jesus did at the cross. I want to be involved with God and what he originally purposed me for, and that's pleasing to him.